route changes, restrictions on our waterways and parks. That's what comes to mind for many when you think of APEC. But it was the largest gathering of international leaders Hawaii has ever hosted, and it provided our state with a number of economic opportunities. And joining us with more on these APEC achievements is Lieutenant Governor Brian Schatz. Good morning. Thanks for joining us. It's great to see you here, and I know you were on the host committee. It was a very long effort in terms of all of this. And we actually had some viewers giving us questions in terms of what was the benefit of APEC. So what was the benefit of APEC?
Well, I think the main benefit is long-term. We're trying to reposition Hawaii as an international business destination, and there's, you can't advertise your way into that. That has to be true, and I think there's no bigger international meeting that Hawaii could have possibly hosted than having 21 heads of state, 21 secretaries of state. And the really, I think the proud moment for us was when President Obama said we did great, thanked the people of Hawaii. He obviously had a successful meeting. The ambassador for APEC, the United States ambassador for APEC, gave us an A+ for hospitality and for efficiency. And so I think we can really be proud of what we did. And over the long run, some of the relationships that we build are really going to bear fruit. First, we're going to focus on adding additional flights throughout Asia, and we have some progress, nothing to report, but we have some good indications there. And second, we have a lot of interest, especially among the Chinese, in terms of partnering with us on clean energy. And so this is a long-term play. This is not like any other convention, and I want to assure people, we're not going to do this thing, next week again or anything like that. But this was an important investment. We thank the public, especially for enduring the traffic jams and the inconveniences. It will be worth it in the long run.
You mentioned that ambassador giving Hawaii an A+ compared to other cities that hosted APEC. What specifically was it that Hawaii did to be able to be so successful?
Well, first, it was hospitality. From the moment they got off the plane, throughout their interactions with folks, whether they were working on APEC or whether they were just at a restaurant, everybody that they interacted with made them feel comfortable. And the important things with respect to diplomacy is if you feel comfortable, you tend to have productive conversations. And so that was really important. And then the other thing is logistically we did well. There are always snafus in terms of communications and the rest of it. And of course, you can't really avoid road closures and inconveniences when it comes to 21 motorcades. But as far as the airport, Waikiki, Nimitz Highway, the way our law enforcement performed, everybody performed to a very high level, and I think everybody ought to be proud.
We talked to one of the economists from the University of Hawaii, and they said overall there will be a positive benefit from APEC. But there were still some of those businesses out there that had to shut down or their business was just hindered, especially in the convention center area. So how do you think all of this balances out in the long run?
Well, the point is that a rising tide will float all boats. But of course, if you were on Saratoga Road, which is you were going to be right up against a concrete barrier, there's nothing we can say except we're sorry that your business had to suffer during that week. A lot of businesses did very, very well, but certain businesses that were in the immediate proximity of those closures really took a hit. And so, but the point of this is not to provide business over a 3 or 4 day period. The point is really to provide economic opportunity for all of us for decades to come.
Do you have any more specific numbers in terms of how many people actually came here for APEC and the numbers or the amount of money that we actually made from APEC? Because it looks like it's not as high as projected.
So the number of people coming is going to be difficult to gather just because we have to get the private jet numbers, we have to get the HICM numbers, and we have to get the airport numbers. But we will provide that as soon as we have a firm number. And then in terms of direct spending, we'll also be putting that together. DBED and Hawaii Tourism Authority will put together a study which measures the direct spending, but also the long-term economic impact. The other thing that I think people aren't talking about, which is extraordinary, is that there have been more than 8,000 individual articles written with the words Hawaii and APEC in it. That's literally publicity that you couldn't buy. If you go to Google News and you say Hawaii APEC, you'll get things in Chinese, Vietnamese, Korean, Filipino, English, of course. So all over the world, people are aware that Hawaii was successfully hosting this important conference.
And speaking of articles or video on the internet, we wanted to show you this. I know you've seen it already. It's gotten 500,000 views on the internet. And this is of Secretary of State Hillary Clinton with the man in the malo running behind her. And I think we have slowed it down for you, too. What did you make of all of that?
Well, what I was struck by is how much personality she has, that she was in the middle of this kind of important conversation with I think they call him the chief executive of Hong Kong, and she clearly is, comfortable in her own skin. And
he's comfortable in his own skin too.
Yeah, fair enough. But the other thing I noticed is that her reaction is like about 2 seconds after where I would have expected it to be. Because he runs by, and then about a second later, she turns around and gets such a big kick out of it. And then the chief executive of Hong Kong, hard to tell what he's thinking other than be cool, this is the Secretary of State here.
Well, and I've got to say, the backdrops with the presidential press conferences and all of the leaders, amazing view and stunning scenery of Hawaii.
Absolutely.
Well, Lieutenant Governor Brian Schatz, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. And maybe you can relax a little bit after all of this preparation.
This weekend.